This episode goes out to Bob in Lady Cliff, Montana.
Hi there, Megan Robinson here. Welcome to the 19th episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast. Bloodlust is out on Audible. If you've been holding out, hold no longer. This story follows Mag, an unstoppable warrior on a quest to avenge her husband. On her road, she runs into a foe no one in Underrealm has seen for years. Better yet, the story is told by her best friend, a ranger named Alburn. And if you don't already know who Alburn is, trust me, you're going to love him. This story was written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. Garrett had fun with this one, and it's our best audiobook so far. I really hope you check it out. You can get it wherever audiobooks are sold. Lastly, a reminder. Don't forget to pop over to iTunes and leave us a review if you're enjoying this podcast. 5-star reviews are a huge deal to us, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate them. Okay. Now it's time for today's episode. Today you're getting chapter 29 of Nightblade. When we left off, Lauren and Jem were running for their lives from the Weir Mage Auntie. Enjoy!
Nightblade, Chapter 29. They found their way back to Marcus's shop just before sundown. The cobbler's granddaughter let them in the back door without a word, and when they descended into the cellar, 2 straw pallets waited for them. The blankets looked threadbare, and Lauren saw no pillows, but still the pallets seemed like gifts from a dream. She realized with a shock that she had not slept in more than a day, since the last morning she woke with Damaris's caravan on the road to Cabras. Without a word, she and Jem collapsed on the pallets. Sleep claimed her before she even smelled the straw. Terror made a poor aid for sleep. Lauren dreamed of fleeing through the streets of Cabras while Gregor and Byrne chased her on horseback and Damaris leaped across the rooftops. The merchant fired at her with bow and arrow, sending darts ricocheting across every wall, rebounding from the cobblestones, always just a finger breadth or two from the mark. Gregor and Byrne swung their swords just above or beside her head, and Lauren felt that they played with her, toying with her like cats after a mouse. She fell to her knees, lungs burning and heart threatening to burst through her chest. "Take me then," she cried in the dream. "Have done with it." They all smiled, but they did not advance. Instead, out of the shadows came Auntie, fingers wrapped around the hilts of her strange knives. A smile frosted her lips as she stepped forwards, and then her eyes glowed, and she changed to the woman in the pink dress, and then to Annis, to Lauren's mother, her father. He leaped forwards, knives swooping down to plunge into her chest. Lauren started awake on her pallet, and her heart would not still for a long while. Jem snored mightily across the room. Pale light filtered in through a narrow crack in the wall, and from its color and angle, she guessed that not an hour had passed since dawn. Down the stairs from the house above drifted the slow, lazy scent of bacon. She heard the clunk of tableware on wooden bowls. She thought of nudging Jem awake to come with her, but the boy's face looked so placid, his mouth open and air roaring as he sucked it in through his nose. Lauren could not bear to wake him, so she climbed the stairs alone. Marcus's eyes snapped to her as she emerged from the cellar stairway. "Good morn," he said. Lauren waited for him to ask after her success. He said nothing, but only returned to his meal. She rubbed her stomach, which gurgled sudden and loud. Like a wraith from mist, Marcus's granddaughter appeared out of what Lauren guessed was the kitchen. In her hand, the girl held a small wooden plate, and upon it were 2 thick and juicy rashers of bacon. "I would not impose," said Lauren, flustered. The girl only smiled and pressed the plate forwards. "Thank you," said Lauren, taking it. "I fear my manners have been lax. What is your name?" Enough of that. Tend to your chores, said Marcus. The girl vanished as quickly as she had appeared. Marcus fixed Lauren with a hard eye. You will forgive me, of course, but I keep from my grandchildren the names of those who pass through here. I have no knowledge of what you have or have not done, and I do not care to. If you come back through here with Zane, then you can meet her. Most come through once and never show their faces again, and most times that is the way I like it. Of course, said Lauren in a small voice. She almost took the stool opposite Marcus, but then thought better of it. Instead, she turned and headed for the corner. Do not be ridiculous, said the cobbler gruffly. Sit. You're not an animal either. Thank you. She sat and picked up the first piece of bacon. It tasted so good, Lauren thought she might faint. Have you not been eating? Not well, or often, no. It shows. Marcus finished first, standing and vanishing through the door to his workshop. Once she had eaten, Lauren returned to the cellar to fetch Jem. The boy woke reluctantly, and only after Lauren tried many times. Over and over he shot up, swearing he was awake. Then he would lapse back under the blanket and slip from consciousness once more. Finally, Lauren dragged him up and onto his feet. Fortunately, he weighed no more than a bundle of sticks. What? I am awake. You look it, said Lauren. Now come. Why? The door is locked, and we have no chance of opening it. Why not just leave? We stayed, we fought, and from what my eyes have seen, we lost. Lauren glowered. He tried to meet her gaze with defiance, but in the end, he only looked at his feet. They went upstairs, where Marcus's granddaughter appeared again with a plate for Jem. Her mind raced as he ate. The problem was that he might be right. She had not the first clue how they might find their way into Auntie's hidey hole, and thus no idea how to retrieve her dagger. Yet neither was she willing to give up, to slink through the city's gates with her tail between her legs. Tell me, she asked Jem, you said the older boys, when they go to work the hard jobs, learn to work locks. They must use tools. Of course, said Jem, looking as though Lauren had named the sky blue. Where do they get them? Mayhap we can fetch some of our own. Jem shook his head emphatically. No good. I would not know where to get them, but even if I did, those merchants sit in Auntie's pocket, and they would send her word before we left the shop. We could steal them. Jem gave her a look of scorn. Did you not hear me? I know not where to look. Besides, the boys have no doubt told Auntie about our escapade last night. Guards will line the sewer for leagues. You will not reach the door again. Not now. Lauren felt helpless. All the boys they had seen in the sewers were as tall as she herself, or taller, and all of them strongly muscled besides. She would have wagered herself better in wrestling or boxing and thought she might take one in a fight, but they would not come one at a time, and Auntie owned many. Why should the weremage wish to plague her so? Auntie had to know what it was to be alone in the world, seeking a place for oneself. She had found hers, caretaker of an army of children who would obey her without question. Why did she hate Lauren with such fury? A chilling notion struck her. Jem, she said carefully, why does Auntie have only boys? Jem stopped chewing his food. He did not answer. Her fighters, I mean, said Lauren. The children are both boys and girls, but the older ones, the children who do the hard jobs, who fight for her, they are all boys. Jem pushed his plate away. The girls leave. Leave? Where? I do not know. He picked at his fingernails. Once they reach a certain age, they just leave. Somewhere else. You never asked where? He cleared his throat and gnawed at his nails. I knew one of them once, a girl named Tam. We were friends, or so I thought. One day she was no longer there. I asked Auntie about her, and she said Tam had gone, but she would not tell me anything more. After I asked too many times, she grew angry and asked me how would I like to join Tam, where no one would ever see either of us again. I said no, and she let it go. I asked no more after that. Lauren swallowed hard. Do you think she... I do not think about it at all. Nor will I. They sat in silence for a while after that. From Marcus's workshop came the steady plink, plink, plink of a cobbler's hammer. A thought struck Lauren like a thunderclap. She raised her head and her hands tensed on the table. Jem must have seen it in her eyes. What is it? Jordale. The big man in the red cloak? What about him? He said he would help us. Jem pursed his lips. He said something like that, yes, but I see this as far from his meaning. He can help. How? Said Jem, spreading his hands. Will he storm the sewers alongside us, swinging a mighty sword? I do not see him as the type to cut down young men who have done him no harm, and I would not wish to see him again if he were. He knows things. There is wisdom in him, and something else I do not understand. But you can hear it when he speaks, see it in the way he carries himself. Jem's eyes widened. You sound like some sun-struck beggar raving about kings in the sky. Lauren frowned. I suppose you have a better notion? Yes, as I have said before and often. Leave, flee from Cabras, never to return. Lauren shook her head. No, we must try this at least, else I cannot live with myself. Come, we shall find him at the... She froze, her throat constricting. The Wormwing Inn, Jordale had said. Damaris, too, stayed at the Wormwing, and Lauren knew she would not yet have left the city, not without her daughter. What? Said Jem. Nothing. Only we will have to wait for him to come to us. But finish, quickly. The sooner we are off, the sooner our task will be done and we can leave this place behind. They dressed as lepers again. Lauren had grown to hate the rags, smearing shoe polish along her skin, smelling so strong they made her eyes water. She would have given much for clean rags, but lepers could not afford such. It grew worse in the bright light of day. It was summer and the city streets stank. The shoe polish baked on their skin, and Lauren thought she might faint from the heat and smell of herself. She told Jem to follow back alleys and side streets. She dared not risk the sewer again, and the roofs seemed too exposed. So he took her on the widest, most winding and hidden route he knew. Sometimes they snuck into basements that led into the bowels of other buildings before emerging upon the street again. Lauren could not imagine how Jem had learned of all these secret ways, but then she thought of the birchwood. To her mind came every hidden hollow, every secluded copse, all the secret ways and paths she knew through the woods that had been her home for so long. It was no different, she supposed, with Jem in his city. They soon left the Makers District for the wealthier section of Cabras. Crowds thinned, and Jem struggled more and more to keep them from wary eyes. Constables here would not take kindly to lepers wandering among the city folk. The wealthy had no taste for beggars and the diseased. After they ducked down yet another dark alley to avoid a pair of women in red leather armor, Jem growled his frustration and kicked a broken bucket. One cannot take 2 steps without bumping into the king's law. What I would not give to have the roofs again. Lauren considered it. Auntie could hardly expect them to come to this part of the city where constables were plenty and Damaris's men lurked. Mayhap she would post fewer guards, or none at all. In any case, it seemed less risky than the army of constables that plagued the street. Jem spoke truly. Their trip suffered immeasurable delay. Let us take the rooftops then, said Lauren, and if fortune strike us down, at least it will strike swiftly. Jem's face lit up. Together they shucked their lepers' rags. A low-hanging roof drooped above an obliging rain barrel, and within moments they had gained the shingles. Lauren took a deep breath, free at last from the choking polished scent of the rags. A whiff of it still lingered and likely would for some time, but she felt as though she drank her first breath of clean air in years. Come, said Jem. I will have us there in moments. He darted away along the rooftop, laughing in the morning air. Lauren grinned as she chased him, and for a time they made a game of it, Lauren overtaking him before stopping to let him pass her. She would let Jem cross a few roofs and then work hard at catching him again. It ended all too soon, as Jem had said, and soon he pulled her to a stop at the edge of a roof 3 stories up. They sidled to the edge of it, Lauren peering cautiously down. She did not fear heights, a forester's daughter spent too long in trees for that, but in the woods she had branches to grasp and break her fall. Here she saw only air between herself and the ground. There is the Wormwing. Jem pointed to a 3-story structure, its walls purest, unmarred white, its roof painted green. Every bit of it bespoke wealth and luxury. Colorful banners draped its length, and its twin front doors hung wide, allowing air to flow freely within. Outside those doors stood 2 guards, both in light shirts of mail and armed with long blades. "The finest inn in Cabris," said Jem. "Or at least no other will make the claim for fear of retribution from the Wormwing's owner. Darius is a hard man, and he does not take kindly to the less fortunate sullying his business." "A fine place indeed. And now we wait." "For what?" "For Jordale, of course." They quickly found the roof's edge no comfortable resting place, for the shingles grew hot beneath them, and so they moved to another roof that lay in the shadow of a taller building. There they sat, always with one eye upon the Wormwing's front doors, and let the time pass. As hours wore on, Lauren grew increasingly fearful of discovery. Mayhap Auntie would not send her children here, but then again she might. Even if she sent a patrol to sweep the area once, they could not miss Lauren and Jem sitting in plain sight. Her hope for Jordale's aid grew ever slimmer. Why should the man help them? Lauren and Jem were nothing to him. At best, Lauren served as a means to find Zane. At last she convinced herself. She sat up from her slouch against the building's upper wall. "I think we remained too long. You might have been—" "Hold," said Jem. "There." Lauren sat forwards, peering at the Wormwing's front doors, and through them stepped a tall man, taller than Lauren herself, draped in a red cloak clasped with a strange symbol in silver.
This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today's letter is E. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.